I'm Mick Garris, and this is Mortem, and our guest is not only a master of horror films, but also a metal master, Rob Zombie. So thanks for being with us, Rob.
Thank you.
And
good intro. I feel like a master.
Well, what came first for you? Was your first love music or movies?
I don't know. I think it was both simultaneously. I was always, as a kid, I was just obsessed with anything entertainment. You know, any movie, anything musical on TV. I was just obsessed. But I think the real melding of the two came when I was like in first or second grade, and I discovered Alice Cooper. So it seemed to be kind of the best of both worlds. You know, because it seemed like all these horror movies as music.
Right.
And that was sort of the kickoff point, I think, for everyone.
So which did you pursue first?
You know, I kind of like pursued everything in a non-pursuit manner. I mean, back then it didn't seem like you could do any of these things to me. You know, you're living in some small town, you're a million, like Hollywood miles would be another planet. The bands that you love, Alice Cooper, Led Zeppelin, are so larger than life. I didn't feel like I could pursue any of the things, so I was just more like a psycho fan of everything. And it was really only later that maybe I could do this, that you start seeing things that inspire you in a way that seems possible. So, but still, it was always, movies still always seems really out of reach. Like music seemed more like, well, you can get a bunch of friends, you can buy some crappy instruments, and you're on your way.
Right.
You could call it a band, but scrounging up the money to buy film and process it just seemed impossible. So I guess music came first just because it had to.
But there was always the love of all kinds of media, it seems like, but it was usually the extremes?
I just loved everything all the time. I don't know why it seemed like the music I gravitated to was more extreme or movies, because I just loved everything. You know, I would just sit there. My greatest passion was every week was getting TV Guide, and I would circle every single movie, and I would sit there and watch every single one, because it was like 12 channels, so it was easily a task to accomplish. But I would just go from, you know, Great Escape from 1 to 2, 2 to 4, you know, Night at the Opera, 4 to 6, Bonnie and Clyde. I would just sit there all day long.
So it wasn't just a particular
No,
genre.
it was everything. It didn't matter. I mean, of course, like there was like Creature Double Feature and stuff was on the weekends. We'd always watch that, but it didn't matter.
You set the alarm for 3 a.m. to watch.
Well, yeah, that would be the
Ed
worst
Wood
when you go
movies.
like, oh no, because you could never see these movies. You're like, oh no, Night of the Living Dead's on
Pre-VCR.
4 a.m. on a school night. How am I going to pull this one off? yeah, pre-VCR, pre-anything.
Well, it seems like a lot of filmmakers, particularly in the horror genre, have a music background. I know I was in a band for years before I ever started writing stuff, and John Carpenter and lots of guys. And what do you think? You think maybe it's that horror movies and rock and roll are both a form of rebellion to remove yourselves from your parents?
I don't know if I ever consciously thought I was rebelling ever. I don't even think I was a very rebellious kid. I was just sort of like the weird kid who didn't understand anything.
Right.
I see it this way, and everyone else seems to see it this way. And
So you weren't a popular kid.
I was just invisible. I just didn't get it.
Right. So,
You know, I loved Alice Cooper as much as I loved watching the Hollywood Squares, because I loved Paul Lynde, and it didn't matter. It was like,
it's all media.
Yeah, it was anything that wasn't
input.
real life was good by me.
So you started making homemade movies when you were a kid.
Yeah, and boy, they were heartbreaking because, unlike with a video camera, you know what's happening. I remember so many times we'd spend forever making these movies, and we'd get the film back, and we're like, it's all black.
Oh, no.
What the?
The lens cap.
Yeah, it's just something. It was always something.
Well, the first films I saw of yours were the videos you did that played at the Halloween Horror Nights. You had put together an attraction at Universal Studios. And when you wait in line, there are all these video monitors playing the videos that were really fantastic and obviously showed a love of the history of horror.
Yeah, that was my first real training ground where I got to work for real, because I didn't go to film school or anything like that. So making videos, that was good, and then that became kind of a drag because they're so formulaic, and that's when I started trying to make, every time I'd make a video, I was like, God damn, we could be making a movie with, because videos would cost a lot of money.
Right. So was the relationship with Universal and the Halloween Horror Nights, did that lead to House of a Thousand Corpses?
I start forgetting how it all went down, but
It's all that rock and roll.
I went to Universal, and they were doing their theme park division. They were going to start back up their Halloween Horror Nights, which they had stopped doing. And I did an attraction based on, it was like sort of based on my album. It was like a very Rob Zombie one. And by the following year is when I had made House of a Thousand Corpses, and it was done, or we were editing, or we were doing something, we were in the process of it. And the next year I did another Halloween attraction. That one was based on House of a Thousand Corpses. It was called House, and it was all the sets and the characters from the movie, but the movie wasn't out yet. And then everything went sour with Universal, and we changed the name of the attraction from House of a Thousand Corpses to like the Great American Nightmare or something, and the rest.
The irony about House of a Thousand Corpses being financed by Universal Studios and then seeing the movie and deciding, what are we doing here, and bailing out of the distribution was quite a controversial event.
But it was all good. I mean, it was really, I've never had such a good experience until it went bad as then. Because working at Universal, I swear to God, whatever we asked for, they're like, no problem. Like, I was like, really? You just asked for something and more money magically appears? Now it seems like with every movie, it's like you're so strapped for every little thing. But back then it was great. You know, we were like just building these crazy sets, and we shot the whole thing basically on the back lot. And
that's the major studio process.
Everything
is so different.
Yeah, everything we wanted, it was just there. Yet no one was really paying attention to anything we were doing. And it wasn't until we had our fateful test screening that night that everyone came down from the studio, and afterwards I went up to some of the executives and they were just horrified with what we had made.
So they had never seen it before this preview?
No.
Oh,
some people had seen it, and they were all like, "Yay, I can't wait for the preview. This is going to be great." But the people who needed to see it hadn't seen it yet.
Right.
I could tell by the looks on their faces this is not going to be good. So the next day we were gone.
Suddenly, the Universal Studios developed a conscience and felt that you had bridged that gap.
I don't know what it was, but there was kind of like, that was, when did we do that? We shot that, I think, 2000, which seems hard to believe now that at that point, like, horror movies weren't real prevalent.
Right.
Again. I mean, then they suddenly were everywhere, but for that brief moment, they weren't. Universal really wasn't making them. They were doing more like the Flintstones movies and all that. Right. I mean, they really didn't want to do horror. And when they saw this, they're like, oh, this has no place in our game plan.
Despite their legacy.
Yeah, despite the legacy. And then, but within like 2 years, they were doing Dawn of the Dead, I think, and all that stuff. And they were fully on board. But at that moment in time, we really had, it was as if we had made a porno movie and said, here you go.
And then you went to MGM with it.
Then we went to MGM, and that all seemed good.
For a while.
For a while, till I said something that pissed everybody off by accident. Yeah, we were editing. MGM was paying the bills. And then I was on the set of Daredevil, interviewing Ben Affleck for MTV.
Oh, cool.
And, you know, between takes, he said, hey, what's up with your movie, blah, blah, blah. I said, oh, well, you know, Universal dumped it because, like you said, I guess they have a conscience, they have morals, but MGM's going to put it out. I guess they have no morals. Ha, ha, ha.
A little joke.
Yeah, and then the next day it was on the front page of Variety, me saying that.
Great.
And I was driving to the editing room, and the editor called me and goes, yeah, we just got here. Everything's locked up and they won't let us in.
Oh, jeez.
And that was, we were done.
Oh,
they didn't even want to hear anything. They just booted us in 2 seconds.
Then along came Lionsgate.
Yeah, but we hadn't given up. We were still editing on everyone else's dime, which was kind of funny.
Right.
Because we never really finished the movie. I actually shot stuff to finish the movie in my house with a video camera.
Oh my God.
So sometimes it looks like a stylistic choice that the film goes to, you know, Super 8 or something. That's
How
just
arty.
Me with a camcorder going, we have to finish this movie at all costs. And since I was friends with all the actors, they came in and, you know,
right.
And everybody came in and basically finished it for lunch. And then we shopped it to every single person we could find, and no one even remotely cared. And everybody was like, we knew you two idiots would fuck it up, you know. Meaning me and, you know, Andy Gould, who was my manager / producer. We were the only two, we were the, you know, the two last people attached. Everyone else had run for the hills. And everyone seemed like, we knew it. We knew you couldn't break out of the music business and make it happen. And even Lionsgate turned us down.
Really?
Yeah. And I always figured that if you can't get it into theaters, it's like you failed.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, which is, you have to have some goal that you're trying to achieve, because you can always go direct to video.
And this is your first movie, too.
Yeah. And then somehow, I don't know, someone at Lionsgate who hadn't seen it saw it, and they were like, okay. And
it turned into a huge success.
Yeah, it's really funny, because it's amazing what 10 years can do. 10 years ago, people go like, wow, you guys made possibly the worst fucking movie of all time. To now people go like, I can't believe you guys made that classic film. And I'm like, it's just hysterical. It was just so funny how time
like John
can
Carpenter's
change.
The Thing was a disaster.
Yeah.
And it's lasted longer. People now still watch The Thing, whereas E.T., which kind of pushed everything aside in 1982, lovely movie, but nobody talks about it.
Yeah, I remember when The Thing came out, everyone was like, everyone was trashing it.